Some kids are taken into care for many different reasons. There can be allegations made where as the parents aren't emotionally taking care of them, or there has been physical abuse within the home, sexual assault maybe, if you can't provide for your kids in regards to giving them the care that they need, for example, food, just taking care of them, bathing them, just those basic necessities. If other people around them, as in myself, if we notice specific things or the child has reported to us, it's our responsibility to report to CAS, and then they will take the proper precautions as to where the child will go next.
Thank you. Did you know that? Okay, not all of it. I thought, as you were discussing, I heard children, teaching our children to respect adults, which is great. I'm all for that, 100%. Teaching our children to call elders aunties and uncles, that's great. But it's also important for you to teach your children that it is not good for an adult to touch you. So, that is a big thing. A lot of times, we're not talking about abuse, but as you were talking, I made a few notes because I think I should bring these to your attention. Because we work with social CAS, so we get a lot of these things. When you tell your children that so-and-so is your uncle, so-and-so is your auntie, you have to respect them, you have to also tell them what is good touch and what is not good touch. What is good behavior, what is inappropriate behavior. And you need to provide that safe space for them to be able to come and talk to you when these things happen. Because a lot of times when children are abused, they don't tell. Because an uncle and auntie says, it is okay for me to do that. Or if you go and tell your parent, I will do this, I will hurt your family, or they won't believe you anyway. Your children need to trust you, the parent, more than the uncle or the aunt. Yes. Because in reality, abuse is caused by people that we know, friends and family. It's very disheartening, but that's the reality. True. And abuse happens a lot in churches, more so in churches, actually. Yeah. More so in churches, because we are a church of love. We're a church of welcoming everybody in. Anybody here Pastor, have you done a police check on every single person sitting in these pews?
Those who work with kids.
Those who work with kids. But when you're just walking off the street because I want to worship, we're actually excited and happy to welcome you. And so let's be vigilant. Okay? Secondly, Shante talked about physical abuse. Some of us grew up being belted and beaten. You know, when children go to school and they say, my dad beat me or my mom beat me, they have to call CAS. If they don't call CAS, they can get into trouble. And that is why sometimes we find our children in places that they shouldn't be. And you know, when you say, I'm going to beat you, or I'm going to, what are some of the terms, lick you or slap you. Sometimes we don't even do that. But the mere fact that they've heard it, oh, I'm so afraid if I go home, my mom's going to beat me. That word beat is strong and intensive, and so they're going to take it up. So let's be mindful of that. Don't beat your children. You can smack your children, but don't smack your child so there's a mark on them, because that's abuse, and you can get into trouble. Neglectful, being a neglectful parent. And we're going to come to the different parenting styles. Let's go through the parenting styles. But you can get into trouble for neglecting your child by not feeding them, not giving them breakfast, not washing them, wearing dirty clothes to school. All of those things you have to be aware of. And for single parents who are here, we hear that it's very difficult to be a single mother. We empathize. But don't parentify your children. What does that mean? Don't let your children become the parent. allow your child to be a child. Your 5-year-old cannot make dinner. Your 5-year-old cannot babysit. Your 10-year-old cannot babysit your 3-year-old while you go and do your second job. We're a village, so we need to support each other. So I just wanted to mention that because these things came up as you guys were talking. So let's go through the different parenting styles that some of us have, or we may. So we have authoritarian parenting, known as a brick wall. And I think most of us, I can say that we may have had the authoritarian parent, the strong Black, African, Caribbean parents who do as I say, who you can't talk to, who you can't answer back. There's a little warmth and little feelings and lots of control, unquestioned obedience, respect for authority. We have that. It's all about authority, respect. It's all about rules and order and schedule and all of these things. You may say, but yeah, but children need that. But if you do that outside of love, it doesn't work. Your children will grow up in fear. So what does it look like? It looks like, an authoritarian parent is controlling, bossy, rigid, has rigid rules. All decisions are made by the parent. The child has no say. I would say my dad is an authoritarian parent. I remember when I was going off to university, he said, "You're going to do law." That's it, no questions. To the point where he actually went to register me at the university. And they said, well, I was 17, 18 at the time. And they said, no, she has to make her decision. Even then, I actually did go, because I was so scared of my dad to get away. I went to do that law. That was my first degree. As soon as I finished, okay, I'm going to do counseling, because this is what I wanted to do. So sometimes when we push our children in certain directions, we waste time. We waste a lot of time and energy. So there's little exchange, there's little affection, little to no affection in authoritarian parenting, because I just need you to listen. And sometimes as parents, when we're so busy or we're single parenting, we tend to become authoritarian because we just want you to listen. Just get on with it. But the result of authoritarian parenting, this is the kind of children that come out. Maybe slide. Oh, these are some of the things that they say. I'll give you something to cry about. You hear that? Yeah? I'll give you something to cry about. Why aren't you more like your brother? Don't be such a baby. Do as I say. Why, mommy? Because I? How many of us have said that many times? Because I said so. But that's not a good answer anymore. Because our young people are being taught in school to ask questions. They're being taught in school to speak up. And if they're not learning to speak up now, as adults, they become timid. When they go to job interviews, when they go to the workplaces, they're not able to speak up. And so you get a child that looks something like this. Okay, so the outcomes are you may have obedient children. You may have children that have high marks, high achievers, but on the flip side, they're unhappy children. They're withdrawn. They have low self-esteem. They're not able to think for themselves because they've been told what to do throughout. You do this, you do that. So children from authoritarian homes are so strictly controlled, either by punishment or guilt, that they're often prevented from making a conscious choice about a particular behavior because they were overly concerned about what their parents will do. So they become very confused, or they become very one-sided. And they grow up into children where they don't know how to make decisions. They grow up into angry children. These are the type of children that could get into the drugs and the substance abuse and And these are some of the children that could get into abusive relationships or can be abused because I'm not getting the love at home. All I'm getting is strict, strict, strict. And so if I go outside and some person shows me that little bit of love, that little bit of nurturing, and buys me something that I want, I can start grooming that child. And that's where abuse starts happening. So parents, let's be aware of that parenting style if we're mostly being authoritarian in our parenting.
You know, we were running a program in the community. I think that either in England or here somewhere, and one gentleman said he now have got a deeper understanding what that authoritarian parenting had done to him. He says that he is a high achiever. He is a straight A person. And he said he's been married 3 times. And all of the marriage have gone down the drain because in his eyes, those wives are not high achievers and they are not good enough. Because when he was in school, he would bring 80%, he would be pushed to get 90s, he would get 90, he would be pushed to get 95. And even when he brought home 100, the dad would say, are you the only one who had 100? So can you begin to imagine how it did to his brain? So in his mind, getting into relationships, those women were not good enough because he's always striving for high level stuff. And we had another one that was pushed to do engineering. He went in there, his last exams to finish his engineering degree, he left the exams room, wrote a letter to the parents, said, you know what, I've had enough and I can't do this. And he actually jumped off the bridge and killed himself. Sometimes we don't know how things are. Thank God we turn out to be who we are. But the other side of the coin is, how has that contributed to our being right now? If we have to change certain things, and we were hearing you when you guys were saying we would have loved if we were seen, not only seen and not heard, and we would have loved more hugging and emotional connection, we would have loved this and we would have loved that. And can we begin to imagine how that has shaped us to be who we are? So I just think those would have been different. So finally, a lady was pushed to do medicine. She finished her medical degree, took the certificate to the parents, said, Mom, Dad, this is for you. This is yours. The certificate, hang it in the room. And she went, and she really wanted to be a hairdresser, and she went and opened her own salon and started doing hairdressing. Because there is difference between satisfaction and happiness. You are happy to get a paycheck, but are you satisfied? But when you are satisfied, happiness naturally comes out of you.
Go through. Okay, so the next one is indulgent or permissive parenting style. This is a parent who, wants to be their friend, wants to be their child's friend, wants to get along with them. But remember that you are the parent. So this type of parenting, the discipline is lax. There's not a lot of discipline. There are few rules. They avoid confrontation, little respect for order and routine. Parents make few demands of children. There's rarely punishment or anything like that. These are the type of parents who they don't want fuss. And so they don't give fuss to their children, they don't direct them, they don't do anything. And it results in children who, we're just gonna go quick through. So these are where children go to bed whenever they want, they set their own rules, they go out, they come home whenever they want. These are children who swear at their parents. and tell them to F off kind of thing. You know, that kind of parent and child relationship sometimes you hear about. And so the outcome, children from indulgent homes receive few limits on their behavior and often become uncertain and anxious about whether they're doing the right thing. And so they're not parented, they're not directed. You know, this is the child who is not told what to do, is not told how to do it. They grow up confused. They don't know how to make decisions because you have not allowed them, you haven't given them guidelines. So they, you know, they spoiled brats. You see some of these kids screaming in the shops, I want this right now. And the parent just gives in. And sometimes I feel for these parents because they're embarrassed, they're tired, they're stressed out themselves. And so, you know what? I don't want to deal with this right now, so I'm just going to give you what you want. But unfortunately, then that creates a cycle. It creates a psychology in the child's mind in that, oh, if I scream, if I misbehave, if I do this, I will get. And so that becomes a routine. And unfortunately, it's very difficult to get out. But these are children who may become aggressive, have high anxiety, have difficulty with authority, low self-esteem, self-hatred, domineering. And these are all in your notes. I'm rushing a little bit because I wanted us to get into the discussion part, because I think that's how you guys will get more out of it. So that's the permissive parenting. Then we'll go on to the next type of parenting, which is the uninvolved, the neglectful. This is what I was talking about, that if you are neglectful of your child, CES will come knocking on your door. If you don't take care of them, if you are parent, okay, I'm not gonna come, I can't come to your school play, I can't come to parents' evening, I can't do anything. It comes out with children having poor relationships with others, again, impulsive, aggressive, they have antisocial behaviors. So children from neglectful parents tend to have similar outcomes to the indulgent. They're often confused about how to behave around others. They can be aggressive with a lack of self-control. These children show little sign of internal control because they lack adults who model these behaviors. Does that make sense? You have a question?
Yeah, because that was Adriana's complaint for me, is that she wants me to be there at her soccer games. As I'm in school, my schedule conflicts with that, so it's not that I don't want to be present, but I'm also looking to the future of me trying to have a better career so I could provide for her and her siblings. And so how do I
balance?
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Where school is concerned, I think at least if you can't make it to the sporting activities, at least try and make it to school, to parent evening or parent-teacher consultations. Know who your children's teachers are. Everybody leads a busy life. What Elvis and I used to do when the children were younger was that as soon as school starts, we go to the school, we make ourselves known to every teacher. We give them our emails, we take their emails. Because we're in partnerships. We're not going to leave our children solely to the care of the teacher. We want to be part of that training, that teaching. So if my child is behaving, I want to know. I'm not going to just take the school's word for it, but I want to know how my children are doing in school. So I'm going to, even if I can't go there personally, I'm going to send an email. Right? I'm going to send an email. I'm going to write something in the school book. We're going to have that relationship because we want to partner to raise a healthy child. And if you're not in school, I'm telling you, black parents, if you're not in school, your teachers are going to bully your children. And that's a fact. Yes. Especially black parents, and we just got to speak it out. Yeah. It's a fact that parents who do not go to school to attend to their children's classrooms and meetings and things, they do not get the best attention. Elvis has lots of stories.
I'm going to tell you this story.
Yeah. Yes, he is.
Parents that have got children, please take special note. Or someday you have a child, please take special note. Sometimes they may suspend your children, but don't be too quick to judge your children. Take time and listen beyond listening. Because the way that we were brought up is that teachers do no wrong. once the teacher says, that is what the teacher observed, and the teacher said it, and you flow with that. But sometimes you've got to pause and look at the whole picture. So in England, we had a letter that my son was going to be suspended for 1 day. And I asked the reason why. And they said, because he took one of the teachers' candy. So I said, what? They said, yes, he took candy from the teacher's desk. So our son came and said, what happened? And he said, Dad, we were all sitting there, and this guy went, he was the only black in the class. And this guy took the candy and gave it to everyone in class, and everyone ate it, but his was still sitting on desk because he was busy doing his work. So when the teacher walked in, he unwrapped it and was eating. The teacher said, why have you taken my candy? And before he could even explain himself, he was sent to the principal office, and there he was given a letter, suspended. Go home. So we had a call, and we said, don't worry. So I kept the letter. It was 1.5 months. We had another call that he's been in a fight in school, and they're going to suspend him for 1 week. So I said, wait, I'm coming down to the school. So I went to the school, I pulled him aside. I said, what happened? He said, Dad, we were playing outside, and this kid had been picking on me, and he called me effing nigger. And as soon as he called me effing nigger, I gave him an uppercut, and he fell. And they suspended me. I said, oh, okay. So I went back to the vice principal and I said, can I please have the incident report and read it? And they were going beating about it. And I said, no, you should have an incident report. What happened? So the storyline they were giving me was completely different from my son. So I have to do a reconciliation there. And I said, I need to reconcile his reported story and what you are reporting here. Did you know that there was a racial abuse there? And they kept quiet. So according to the policy in England, because of the Stephen Lawrence inquiry for institutional racism, they changed a whole lot of stuff in England that the whole school were supposed to adjust their policy for any racial harassment. That school had not adjusted it. So they were in for a long ride with us, because we are the parents that go straight to the dot with policies, and we don't mess up. Because of the work we do, we know a lot. So I said, okay, so now I need to review your protocol for the institutional racism. Can I have a copy? They did it. And they said, Mr. JB, we would allow your child to come to school, and we will write. I said, no, give to Caesar what belongs to Caesar. If he is supposed to be suspended for 1 week, let him be suspended for 1 week, and we will go through the process. So I will keep him home for 1 week, and we will talk about it. So I called the police station, because according to the policy, they should be reporting it to the police immediately, and they should also be reporting it to the education office at the council. They hadn't. So I called the police, nothing was reported. I called the education council, nothing was reported. So I had my own. So I wrote a letter to the principal for them to address those concerns as parents. Day 1, no response. Day 2, 1 week, no response. So I decided to make a trip to the school. So when I went, I took the letter that he was suspended for 1 day, taking the... So I went to the principal and I said, Mr. Principal, I would like to clearly understand the policy you guys use to suspend kids in school. Can you give me some examples of how a kid can be suspended for 1 day? And he was going about the bush giving me a whole hypothesis. I said, okay, let me make it easier for you. So if a kid, say for example, takes a candy or a cookie from the teacher's desk, will the kid be suspended? He said, no way, Mr. JB. Those situations, no kid under my watch will ever be suspended. And I said, I am clarifying. So I'm hearing you say no kid will be suspended. So can I just clarify one more time? I clarify and I clarify 10 times. And I took from my pocket and I placed it in front. And I said, Mr. Principal, whose signature is on this letter? It is your signature. My son was suspended because of one candy. And the storyline was not even that. It was deeper than that. And there, I told them to go back and report it to the police and the education of it. And they were finding it so challenging to go because it will look bad on them. And because of that, they have to go and report it. And guess what? That principal was booted from the school because they didn't do their due diligence. Unfortunately, they landed in the wrong family. You parents, listen, and that gave our children a big booster that we were not jumping to conclusion. So they knew that, as we don't joke with those things when it comes to school. Fast forward, came to Canada. Our twin boy went to class because they were doing an exam. We studied, and up to now they laugh at me because they say, Dad, do you remember when you always pull your blackboard and you teach us maths and physics and all of that? I taught them, and I will leave the English to the English woman to deal with that. So we did a whole lot, and he was excited to write his exam, went to school, came home, and I said, how was it? He said, I did not write the exam. I said, how come? He said, because the teacher locked me outside the school. The classroom. I said, how did that happen? He said, well, my sister came for keys for the cabinet, for the locker, and the teacher said, don't keep a woman waiting, a girl's waiting for you. Go give the key to them. And when I came back, the teacher had locked the door. And I said, okay, so where are your books? He said, the books is in the class. I said, let's go to school and pick it up, and I will call in tomorrow. You will write the test. So I was waiting, and my son came and said, Dad, guess what? I said, well, the teacher is in the class marking the papers. I said, okay, let's go. So we went. And as soon as I entered, I was courteous, polite, and I said hello to the teacher. He did not even say hello to me. Yes, what do you want? And I said, excuse me, sir. Is that how you were trained in your teacher's school or at home to speak to parents? I would appreciate if you put the pen down and you look at me and you address me properly. And he was still playing that. And I said, okay, it looks like you are not in the mood to talk right now. And perhaps you don't know who you are dealing with right now. Tomorrow morning, 7:30 a.m., you, myself, and the principal of it, we will have interesting conversation. And we left. When I came home, 6:30, the vice principal called me and said that, please, sir, we apologize. The teacher came and we said that don't mess. And I said, I'm coming there in the morning. So I showed up in the morning, and the way I deal with things that I like policies. Please take time and read the Ontario education policies for every high school or for every elementary school. You have everything right there. When was the last time you reviewed the new updated policy from Ontario education? Read them for your benefit. So I read it, and I went, and they didn't have an idea. The principal, the two vice principals, the principal, the teacher, and they brought a social worker there, and I was there with my son. They said, can your son go out for it? Then I said, he's part of it, he's right here, he's not leaving. I want him to hear the whole process. So I allowed them to talk, and after that, I said that, do you know that according to the policy, Article 1, Section 2.5. This is what it clearly states. No door should be locked, for this and that. And I said that in case somebody was chasing my son to stab him, and he knows that the only place of refuge is in class. And he came, and it was locked, and my son was stabbed by the door. What would you call me to tell me? It was speechless. And they were struggling, going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And in the end, they knew that where it was heading, it was not a joke at all. And asked my wife, I made the people sweat blood. And there I asked them, in your school here, these are the number of students you have. How many black teachers do you have in this school? Not even one. But they have a lot of black students. It was a complete makeover. I'm telling you. We can affect change as parents. We have a voice, but together we need to come together. And then it was a challenging moment. And since then, they were all on a high alert level because the teacher felt that I have no evidence about what happened. So I said that, did you know that the lady that came to pick up the key is Andrew's twin sister? He didn't even know Andrew was a twin. So he thought in his mind, where am I going to speak to the lady to gather evidence that he gave permission? And I said, that was the twin sister right there. And they could come and testify. They were speechless. So take time and listen to your children, because they will have a point that the teachers may be jumping to conclusion. And then they will know that you are being a supportive parent. So apart from being the authoritarian, sometimes it may come in, but we want to have a happy balance. Believe them and trust them when it comes to school.
Okay, so where are we going? We've talked about the neglectful parent, the authoritarian parent, and we've talked about the permissible parenting style. And I'm wondering, and I don't want you to answer me, but think about it. Think about the 3 different parenting styles that we've talked about. Are you in any one of them? Are you using any of those styles? If you are, perhaps we're here for a change. So let's adjust it. I know it can be tough, but let's adjust it and try, as research has proven, that the authoritative parent style is what will bring about the best outcome in our children. The authoritative parenting style, otherwise known as the backbone. The backbone, because we're there to support our children. We're giving both discipline and we're giving love equally. Balance. We've talked about balance a lot this weekend. What does that mean? It means that we listen to our children. It means that, we negotiate with our children. It means that we set boundaries, healthy boundaries, and we follow through. We don't just say, you can't do this. We give them reasons why. We take time to give them why. So, as a result, children will grow up healthy. They'll grow up knowing that, my parent loved me. When it comes to support, my parents will be there. When it comes to discipline, I'm not going to mess up with my parents. Our children will tell their children, no, you can't come to a house like this. You can't come to a house with your pants down. My father's going to tell you off. You can't do this. They know the rules, but you give it to them in love. There's lots of hugging, and I've heard a lot of you say that growing up, you didn't get a lot of hugging, or a lot of that kind of soft things that we like, that our children like today, because we didn't grow up with it. So sometimes it's a bit awkward, right? For us to reach out and give our children hugs and kisses and things like that. But you have to learn it. In the same way you're learning new jobs and new skills, These are things that will be helpful for our children. So our children will grow up, just go to the next one. Healthy. Yeah, keep going. Our children will grow up healthy. These are the outcomes that they'll be achievement oriented. They tend to be happier, most well balanced, most resilient, content, friendly, generous, they're task persistent. And this type of parenting style, children learn how to think, but not what to think. They learn how to think. So you want to teach your children how to think, but not what to think. Because they're going to become adults. They have to go into the world where they have to think for themselves. You're not going to be on their shoulder throughout their lives. So they need to know how to make the right choices and the wrong choices. Okay. In terms of, we're done with the parenting styles. Any comments on the parenting styles? Any questions around the parenting styles? Anybody want to willingly say what parenting style they're doing right now?
I started out the disciplinarian parent, but you know how every kid has a different personality?
Yeah.
So it almost worked for the first one, but I think the first one was just obedient because that was just her nature. And the second one had me on a first name basis with the principal. Every week I was going to meet a teacher where she was in trouble. So I had to change my style for her, and that taught me that that isn't the only way.
Yeah.
Were you here Saturday?
No.
Okay, you would have discovered maybe the one that didn't have problem would be phlegmatic in a way, but the one that maybe would be like cholerical, want dynamic change and knows right and loggerheads and stuff, it will be good. So maybe you can see the pastor, they will give you one of the copies, you run it, then it will be helpful.
For me, I started out being the authoritarian parent. But now, going to school and learning the different parenting styles, I'm trying to switch that now that my kids are teenagers. And understanding that they're both individuals and they receive love in a different way. And so I have to understand now that I have to go to that authoritative parenting style. Even though they're in their teenage years, it's not too late. And so.
Great. I think because I grew up in a authoritarian home, I didn't want my children to grow up scared of me. And so I think I became more permissive. And then as I learned more, I became more authoritative. And so we do adjust. And you know, don't be embarrassed to think that you're one way or that way, because it's all about learning. Like we said, nobody goes to school to learn to be in a marriage. Nobody goes to school to learn to be a parent. We don't go to school for life skills. We learn it on the job. And so we do the best that we can, and then when we have new knowledge, we adjust. Mike.
Yeah. I'm just gonna expose my dad here, and it's like an actual question, because he's an authoritarian parent. Mm-hmm. But how? And I was just thinking, I'm like, oh, he's an authoritarian parent, but he's also choleric. So how do you take your personality and make it different from your parenting style?
Okay, so here you can never change the skin of a pad. You can't. Regardless of how you scrub the skin, you cannot. But you remember we did the personality styles. It has its strength and its growth areas. So it's all about looking at your growth areas and bringing strength out of it. So choleric are natural leaders. They like high, level achievers, discipline. They want things done right. They know the right answer, and also being already in that authoritarian state. But it's all about happy balance. It's all about the balance. And you heard your dad when you said you wanted to do this, he decided, okay, you know what? Let me go in his world and support him go that. And then you paused and you said, now I've had enough, I want to go in the ministry. And he said, what happened to the dream that I was up for it, you wanted to be now? He needs to do an adjustment to come and support you also. That is what we're looking for. That at every point we generate understanding, and you are there to support, because your case agenda may not be your own agenda. Someone quoted it that a man's gift makes room for him and brings the person before great men. There are some people who are great because of cooking. Some people are great just because of biology. Some people are great because of singing. Some people are great because of medicine. So everyone, God has given their talents and their abilities. It is how we identify it and also polish it. Nobody goes to school to discover their gift. No. When you were born, God packaged it for you there. So someone like Usain Bolt, that is his gift. You can train for 10 years, you will go in the tracks on your muscle, go, he will go and leave you behind. Why? Because you were not born with that special muscles. He was born with that muscle. Somebody that is an artist, when they were being created, God put abilities for colors, taste, how they look at things in the mind. So we should not try to be like someone. We must be who we are. So Jeremiah was a prophet, but when he was going to school, he was a baby prophet. He went to polish his skills and he grew fully to be the prophet God wanted him to be. So the question is, what are our gifts and talents that God has given us? So you go to school to polish it. You don't go and discover it. So it's all about happy balance.
That's good.